Well, new at 6, we are learning help could be on the way for dozens of families whose child care centers are closing this spring. Today, I found out other businesses are stepping in to make sure parents and children don't get caught in the state's child care crunch.
All right, Mayor, let's get your jacket on.
Mornings at the Wolfley household in Montpelier are a bit chaotic. As you might expect with an energetic 2-year-old and a puppy.
1, 2, 3.
Mom Hillary says her daughter Marion loves to go to Love Works, her child care. But that care could be coming to an end. The Montpelier Center told them earlier this month that it would be closing on March 13th due to financial pressures.
We were completely shocked.
What were you concerned might happen?
That we wouldn't find a spot somewhere.
She says she and her husband immediately called around, got on wait lists, and hoped that they would not have to give up either of their jobs.
You have to do something, right? If you can't find care anywhere, what else do you do?
Help could be on the way for her family and others. I spoke with National Life Group, which owns the building that LoveWorks is in Montpelier. They told me that they are actively working with Let's Grow Kids to see if they can continue to provide high-quality child care in the Montpelier area. They say for them, it's a workforce issue because many of the families who choose to work here have kids and need child care.
I mean, it's super critical to be able to have that continuity of care and know that it's going to happen.
That's why Director of Child Care Licensing Crystal Michaud says her department is fast-tracking the applications they've received. She says 2 existing child care businesses have stepped up to take over the LoveWorks sites. One taking the Milton and South Burlington locations, and another the Montpelier one.
They're super passionate about the profession, and they've had success, and then they want to meet other communities' needs.
Oh my gosh, that looks just like me.
That's welcome news to the Wolfley family.
That would be wonderful. That would be ideal.
Who say they're cautiously optimistic that Marion will be able to stay with the place and the teachers she loves.
You want to go outside and go down the slide? Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Bye.
None of the deals are finalized yet, so the state could not confirm to us which of the businesses are going to be taking over the LoveWorks sites, but did say that they're hopeful that all of that will be done before the March 13th deadline.
Today, thousands more Vermonters return to work in fields like manufacturing and construction. And a week from today, those industries are expected to fully reopen, putting 50 to 60,000 Vermonters back on the job. But that is leaving some in a bind because without school, they need to be home with their kids. Kat Villianzoni spoke with a Central Vermont family who's wondering how they're going to make it work.
Decide how you want to play.
Hannah Cannon's mornings and afternoons are spent guiding her 7-year-old son, Matt, through his school lessons. Monday, it's phonics.
Yes, yes.
But her main worry, aside from the coronavirus, is something that's on the minds of thousands of Vermont families right now.
Child care is probably the top concern that I have.
She's an optician in Montpelier and right now only works 1 day a week. But she knows she needs to go back to full-time work at some point, perhaps even soon. And their private daycare option is still closed.
Right now, my husband, is reduced hours and he gets to come home and be with him on 1 day a week. The other 4 days, I do not have child care, so that makes it a big problem. So.
Is that something the state of Vermont has to address before they send people back to work?
I feel like they do. In a major way. I'm not alone.
Hers isn't the only family we heard from. Several of you wrote into Channel 3 asking us to get answers for you because you're looking at businesses opening and you're wondering if your job will be next. We had one person write into us saying that he's eager to go back to work, but as a single parent of a school-aged child, he's not sure he'll be able to go back and do that if his business opens back up again. So we went to the state to find answers and find out if they'll be able to keep their jobs or if their employer can replace them.
My message would be to those who simply don't have child care and are asking me to go back to work or asked to go back to work, that they don't have to if they can show that child care is an issue for them.
Monday, Governor Phil Scott said that people who couldn't return to the workforce due to child care and school closures would be protected under the Federal Families First Act, which also applies to Vermont workers. But they would need to stay on unemployment. While the governor hinted guidance would be on the way in the next week or so for summer camps, which would help alleviate the crunch for some families, the Agency of Human Services Secretary said the earliest child cares could reopen would likely be June 1st.
Good old chocolate milk.
Cannon says she hopes a child care solution could be worked out through the schools because families need answers soon.
Right now versus in a week or two, it's going to drastically change.
In Barrie, Kat Villanzoni, Channel 3 News.
In a couple of weeks, childcare will be back open for families who need to go back to work. But there will be changes due to the coronavirus. We told you last night at 6 what that guidance was, including masks for kids and adults, stricter hygiene, health checks, and more. Well, today, Kat Villanzoni found out why some providers say that might be too much.
The new guidance from the state Wednesday evening is designed to give child care providers a map for how they can reopen their facilities during COVID-19. The problem? Some places say it's so strict that they might have no choice but to go under instead.
Oh, you got some still.
Elena Freeman and her coworkers are spending a sunny morning getting this playground ready for whenever kids can come back to Next Generation's northern campus.
The kids are where my heart and where my passion is, and it's really heartbreaking to not be able to be with them.
But owner Sarah LeBlanc is trying to figure out if they can bring those 80 kids back to their St. Albans and Georgia locations.
It was an instant, like, how are we going to do this? Is this even possible financially?
That's because she saw all the changes she would have to make here to meet state standards for stopping the spread of COVID-19. She says she's going to have to extend walls up to the ceiling, mandate staff to wear cloth masks all day, and hire extra staff because their system of having someone rotate between rooms to help is considered cross-contamination. And she's not sure grant money promised by the state will cover all of that. She's already had to dip into savings to pay staff and rent while she's been closed.
It's just hard trying to balance what do you do, because we want to do what's right, but if things are impossible, then how do you do that?
We took her concerns to the Vermont Department of Health.
The staffing rule is very strict, and it's not just for virus spread. It's for if there is a positive case, the contact tracing.
Brina Holmes is the director of maternal and child health and was part of the team involved in the regulations. She says they know parts of the guidance, like asking kids to wear masks, may not be doable for some age groups.
Do the best you can, recognizing that it's going to work for some kids and not for all.
She says more guidance on finances is coming out Friday and says they're doing their best to answer questions.
This is health guidance, and almost everything in that document is a recommendation, but we use the word must just a few times. Sick kids can't come. Sick staff can't work. Kids who become sick during the day have to go home. We must wear facial coverings as adults, those kind of things.
Child cares can start bringing their staff back on Monday to prep for reopening. Reopening can happen June 1st if the space is able to meet the requirements. In St. Albans, Kat Villanzoni, Channel 3 News.
Parents heading back to work can now send their children back to childcare. Businesses reopen today with some changes. Kat Villanzoni joins us live from Georgia to explain. Kat, what's different?
All right, Darren, it's kind of hard to see from where I'm standing right now, but way in the back and also in the front of the child care center here, there's some temporary fencing that's been set up to allow more play spaces for kids, because one of the new guidelines they have to follow is keeping groups of kids separated so there's less chance that, say, COVID-19 might transmit between those groups. It's one of several changes that this child care center and others have had to make in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. But those changes cost money, and child care centers here say they're not quite sure how badly it's squeezing their bottom line, but they know that money from the state isn't going to cover all of it. A few raindrops are exactly what 5-year-old Madison Stommel ordered.
I can't wait until it rains.
You can't wait until it rains?
Yeah, then we get to make mud pies.
It's her first day back at childcare after months. She and her 2-year-old brother Lucas both attend Georgia's Next Generation. Mom Michelle told us they wanted to come back.
They were very, very excited to see their friends. They hadn't seen them in months.
But they came back to a different environment. New temporary fences outside to create separate play areas for groups of children. Teachers and staff wearing masks. All precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
I, of course, have some concerns, but as long as they're trying to follow them the best that they can and try to maintain a natural environment for the kids, I feel like I was pretty comfortable with that.
We heard similar from Mom Kelly Forbes. Oliver will be 2 in August. She's glad to be able to send him to play and learn with his friends while she works full-time at a school.
Wasn't worried at all. I know that they're going to take the precautions that they need to make sure that their staff and all the kids stay safe.
But those safety precautions cost money. Next Generation serves about 80 families in Franklin County with their 2 locations, one here and one in St. Albans. Both had to hire 2 extra staff members to meet new guidelines that prevented staff from working with multiple groups of kids. Owner Sarah LeBlanc says they're getting about $15,000 to $16,000 in restart grants from the state for each location. But she's spending more than that on salaries.
It does not cover what you need, not to mention supplies for masks, gloves, the thermometers, all of the extra stuff. It adds up quick.
She tells me they also had to reduce hours to help meet staffing pressures. Budget lines are tighter. And some families didn't send their children back.
Unfortunately, we lose that tuition now that June 1st has started. So we are ramping up enrollment a little bit, trying to, how do we fill those spaces?
Monday, the state reiterated they're spending $6 million on grants to help places like Next Generation with the transition. Human Services Secretary Mike Smith saying they're going back to the way it was before the pandemic hit.
Are there bumps along the road? I'm sure there are, but the majority of things that I've heard of are praise.
Next Generation says it's been an adjustment, and they're still trying to make the business side of things work. But staff told us overall, it's been a good first day back.
We will see what tomorrow brings. Tomorrow, the second day is always an interesting one.
Now, a few moments ago, you heard LeBlanc mention the supplies. The state is helping centers out with those. Secretary of Human Services Mike Smith says that while they know there have been some gaps, they believe overall they've been successful at reaching out to centers and helping them get that equipment that they need to meet the state requirements. That's actually where LeBlanc is right now. They closed here at 4:30, and she said that's right about the time the distribution center opened to her, so she's right there now getting masks for her staff. Live in Georgia, Kat Villanzoni, Channel 3 News.
About 100 families in Chittenden County lost their child care. That's because 2 colleges said they couldn't afford to keep the programs open anymore in the wake of COVID-19. One of them is the University of Vermont's Campus Children's School. That's where Kat Villanzoni joins us live tonight. Kat, what did the university tell you?
Well, Darren, simply put, the university said this program was unsustainable. They did not make anyone available for an interview with me, but they did tell me in a statement that even before the pandemic, the university had been putting about $500,000 in subsidies into this program. They also cited the issue of this being in an academic residence hall as well, saying that with COVID-19, that presents an issue for them, and said that academically, they didn't actually need this program on campus because they can find early learning education placements for their students on other places of the community, so they didn't consider this absolutely essential. However, the parents I spoke with say it's essential to them and say they were blindsided.
Shock. It's heartbreaking. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to do this.
2 moms, both University of Vermont employees, both still coming to terms with the news that their childcare suddenly ended. 56 families were told at the end of last month that the Campus Children's School was closing. Robin Merritt calls that decision one-dimensional.
They've taken away more than just what they see as an academic unit. They've taken away a community.
Her 3 children have gone to CCS. 3-year-old Wren is now going to enroll a year early in kindergarten. Her older brother Murphy says he's disappointed she won't have all the adventures he did when he went there.
I was hoping that my sister could get more experience.
It was the place where we trusted to have our kids cared for and loved.
Kathleen Parent says it was emotional when her daughter Lillian's teachers stopped by their home to say goodbye. Parent is now taking a leave of absence from work and a pay cut to do childcare until Lillian starts kindergarten in the fall.
You know, to try to explain that to a 5-year-old, to say that you can't go back to your school and to your friends and your teachers, it was a hard conversation to have.
UVM is not the only college in our area to have had to make difficult decisions about childcare on campus. The Early Learning Center here at St. Mike's served 40 to 45 families and closed when COVID hit. Then they had to make the decision not to reopen it after the pandemic due to financial reasons. But we did find out that they are working with families to come up with a potential solution.
I feel really grateful that they are partnering with us and wanting this to work out.
Winooski mom Laura Lee is part of a 17-member group looking to restart child care at St. Michael's College as a nonprofit, and told us the college is going to lease them space at a reasonable rate. They're hoping to be open again by the end of the summer.
The need for high-quality child care is tremendous. It's a huge need, and we're hoping that we can continue to serve some of that need.
Discussions like that with UVM are what Merritt and Parent want to see.
I'm really hoping the school would reconsider. We know that it wouldn't look the same as it did prior.
I think some of the reasons that they're landing on don't necessarily feel sound. And again, when you can't have that dialogue, it's hard to see both perspectives on the situation.
Now, despite the financial challenges of running a child care program, the demand is clear. For example, this program here at UVM had a 600 children waiting list. And Chittenden County historically has had maybe 1 to 4% vacancy for child care spaces and very high demand. And there's no evidence that that has changed since the pandemic, which means those families that are trying to find child care now are going to face an uphill battle. Live in Burlington, Kat Villianzoni, Channel 3 News. What impact is the pandemic having on Vermont's child care providers? I dug into the numbers to find out, and here's what I learned. There are fewer child care slots overall. The Department for Children and Families says there are about 450 fewer spots right now when compared to 2019, and that includes all kinds of care, from after-school programs to child care centers to home-based providers. There are also fewer programs total. In that same time period, we lost about 40 programs, going from 1,333 to just under 1,300. DCF says they closed for a variety of reasons, and only a few specifically said it was because of COVID-19. But I wanted to know who was closing and found out it was mostly registered home providers. 62 closed this year. From January through November, only 25 opened. And that translates to a loss of about 350 home child care slots. Still, I also found out the demand for child care is also down, and that's putting pressure on providers' bottom lines.
You're doing so good today.
It's a chaotic ritual, bundling up squirmy toddlers for a trip into the wintry Williston air.
You may sit on the benches. Here, McKenna, let's zip up your coat.
It takes a solid 20 minutes to herd this group outside.
All right, if you are ready, can you put your hands on your head? I'm ready.
But getting outdoors is a must for next generation.
As much of our curriculum and things we can do in our outside classrooms. Bundle everybody up and go.
Owner Sarah LeBlanc says being out in the fresh air is appealing to parents who may be nervous about sending their kids back to childcare during the pandemic. But despite a strong brand, her 2 newest locations here in Williston and in Burlington are only half full. Something that would have been unheard of before the pandemic, when parents in Chittenden County complained of childcare wait lists hundreds of names long.
I'm helping your smaller friend Brayden right now.
Enrollment's been a constant struggle. Again, we never know when the phone's going to ring and someone's like, oh, COVID numbers are rising, we're going to pull. I think people are realizing also, if I have to be home with my other kids doing home learning, what's one more? What's 2 more? We might as well save that money.
Each kid matters, and when spaces stay empty and expenses go up with extra cleaning and staff, the lost revenue adds up fast. She's lucky because with 4 locations, she can spread out the financial burden. Her Franklin County locations are full or nearly full, and having multiple sites allows her to pull staff when needed. Burnouts and sick days are higher now.
Well, today, this morning, we have across all of our campuses, we have 3 staff out, but 2 of them were in the same program, so they were able to support each other, Georgia and St. Albans, to make it happen because the other school had the extra staff. If you don't have that, where are you going to pull from?
That's a tractor.
That's the question Christina Barber asks herself each day.
If I get sick, then I have to shut down. If my son or my daughter gets sick, I have to close down.
She runs Little Fawn's childcare out of her home in Essex Junction, a one-woman business that allows her to also provide childcare for her kids. She can take in up to 10. Right now, she only has 4.
And I've been advertising since August for 3 spots, and it's just unheard of to not even get a bite.
Those spots are her income. And state grants to offset the impact of the pandemic don't come close to covering the cost of running the business.
And I remember cracking open the books and really looking at how much I'm losing, and it's like $7,000 to $8,000 monthly. It's insane.
That's no small amount of money.
No, it's not. It's not. So it puts you in panic mode a little bit.
Next Generation is on more solid footing and expects when the pandemic is over, parents will send their kids back to childcare. But LeBlanc worries whether all the providers will be there too.
We'll be full in no time, and I know that, and I think we're going to be in the worse dilemma than we were before because so many closed out of it.
The state did shore up the childcare system with grants during the pandemic to try to keep businesses from closing. But both LeBlanc and Barber told me the process for applying for that money wasn't easy and there were strict rules about how to spend it. Both said when they're trying to run a business and deal with the added COVID-19 safety protocols, carving out the hours to apply for a grant was a lot. Despite the pandemic, some programs like Next Generation have been able to expand and even add new locations. Tomorrow in Part 2, we're focusing on the success strategies and what it takes to make a childcare business work financially. Yesterday on the News First at 4, I showed you how childcare businesses are struggling during the pandemic. Lower enrollments and adding cleaning and staffing costs are already straining a tight bottom line. Dozens of programs have closed in the last year. So, what strategies can help make a childcare business work even outside of the pandemic stresses? I asked a center and home provider what's working and what's not.
All of our wood, we get milled from Sear Lumber. We love to support local.
Sarah LeBlanc says she and her husband did much of the work to get their newest Next Generation childcare campus up and running in Williston.
And we also use recycled materials.
The details are intentional. Not a lot of flashy colors. A focus on sustainability with natural items and recycled materials. From the hand-washing sinks at the front door.
These are the old doors that were in here in the office out back.
To the refurbished kitchen.
We built our own cabinets. Again, that's all the wood from Sear Lumber.
Each detail made with a brand in mind. What do you think makes a childcare business work financially?
I think you need to be unique. Anybody can do childcare, but what makes you different? So someone might choose you over the other one.
Williston is Next Generation's 4th location. All of them focus on nature.
You want to hold my hand?
And getting kids outside. LeBlanc says it's a selling point when prospective parents ask about their program. Success in filling their Georgia location allowed her to open up a second spot in St. Albans earlier this year. Even after the pandemic's financial toll hit, she couldn't pass up the chance to expand into Chittenden County.
A couple spaces fell upon us and we had to take the opportunity when we could.
Because she already had multiple locations, she was able to make it work. Even when their newest locations didn't fill up due to the pandemic.
You lose a lot of money when you open a program to start because you're starting staff right off at the get-go because you have to train them. The kids aren't here yet to pay for that staff. They're not here yet to pay for the building while you're building. So your other programs are sort of covering that overhead that are full while we're kind of moving forward. So it's definitely made it sustainable.
And I found out in the childcare business, success often comes down to size. Childcare advocacy group Let's Grow Kids tells me programs over 60 families, or fewer than 12, tend to be the most financially feasible. Middle-sized programs often struggle with the ratio of expenses to income.
Running a childcare program is very similar in many ways to running any other type of small business. Small businesses are challenging.
Luann Beninati works with childcare businesses to help them be successful. She says a couple of strategies are embracing technology to make collecting payments and paying staff easier, and sharing back office needs so that each program doesn't have to have a full administrative staff. How common is it that programs are sharing these back of house resources?
Well, we're getting there. It's relatively new in childcare, and we have a couple of networks within the state that are starting to dig into those practices a little bit more.
Do you want to read a book?
Help with something like bookkeeping would make a big difference for Christina Barber at Little Fawns Childcare.
Dump truck. We have a dump truck, right, right, Owen?
She's the only staff member at her home-based location and says the administrative work, plus the extra cleaning, plus the childcare itself, is exhausting.
So it's hours of paperwork. I could spend a whole weekend doing paperwork.
She too is in a new location. She moved from St. Albans to Essex Junction during the pandemic and, like Next Generation, is still looking to fill spaces. But without multiple locations to lean on, she says she's barely making it work.
I talked to my husband about potentially getting a second job on a Saturday, which isn't ideal.
But she loves working with kids and is hopeful that she can make her business work too.
I'm honestly terrified that maybe I'm not going to make it, and then what do? You know, because I can't afford childcare. for myself.
Let's Grow Kids says you do not have to have multiple locations to be successful in childcare, though it does help with the administrative overhead. They also urge childcare providers to tap into state systems that are designed to help them. But when I spoke with the Let's Grow Kids CEO earlier this month, she told me that fundamentally they feel the childcare system needs an overhaul because it's not paying early educators an affordable wage, it isn't affordable for families, and the margins for businesses are still too tight. They are planning to release a plan in the new year that aims to offer a way to fix that.